is up, BOCP? I wanted to go ahead and take this opportunity to pitch a company that I've been wanting to pitch since we got started. I've just been a little busy. The company I'm going to pitch, and sorry I don't have any fancy visuals tonight. This will just be you looking at me, and I'm more than willing to answer questions via in person, or you can call me or in chat. But the company I'm going to pitch is GME, which stands for GameStop. I'm sure everyone's seen a GameStop in their life. Before I get into it, full disclosure, I own a bunch of GameStop. I actively trade options on GameStop. I follow GameStop very closely, but I do not work for them. So just want to get that out there. So GameStop is headquartered in the beautiful city of Grapevine, Texas. Their headquarters is literally like a 5-minute walk from my house. Big building down there. Their current CEO is George Sherman. He is newer there, as is most of his executive team. They have also recently shredded tons of executives and managing directors. They cut a lot of levels out to save money. Currently, it's trading at $3.83 a share. It has a negative price to earnings, as they have not had a good year or two in the earnings front. They have 65 million shares outstanding, and they're currently involved in a very aggressive share buyback program. In mid-2019, in fact, they had over 100 million shares outstanding. So we've seen about a 30 to 40% reduction in their float, or their outstanding shares, in just a few quarters. That's a pretty big move. And I think management's planning to buy back I think they're trying to get it down to 50 million share float total is the idea. So they're still being pretty aggressive there. Their beta is 0.69. So they're not, they don't have a huge correlation with the market, as you could see this past week. And in 2019, which their earnings will be coming up soon for fiscal 2019, they expected to cut their expenses by more than half. To under basically about $75 million is the prediction. So to get into it, their basic business has always been retail gaming, souvenirs, things along those lines. I know we can all agree that those aren't the most exciting industries right now. Retail in general has had a really rough run with the Amazons of the world. Positives, they're the world's biggest video game retailer. They currently have over 5,500 stores in, I think, 14 countries. However, they're aggressively closing stores. They've already closed hundreds in the past 2 quarters, and are, I think, closing another like 600 this quarter. And they're even shutting down operations in a few countries. Everything is moving digital. We get that. And so everyone thinks that GameStop's going to die. I don't. They're aggressively positioning themselves to kind of right the ship. Or the ship, for lack of a better term, in a better direction. And I'm going to go into why or how they're trying to do that. One big number, they currently have roughly about a $900 million cash and liquidity balance. Over half of that is cash, and then they have some lines of credit as well. So they're doing pretty good there. They have a lot of money, hence the share buybacks. And the price I'm going to pitch them at is anything under $4.20. And I'm going to go into why that's my price and why that's been my price. And we'll get there. First, I think this stock is incredibly undervalued at its current price. If you look at pure book value, and what book value essentially is, it's like, say a company is going to get liquidated and go out of business. Book value is a way you could kind of say, okay, well, this is what their price should be per share if they were going to get liquidated. For GameStop, it's close to like $9 a share. So they're trading at a huge discount to book value. And there's other things that go into it. But just that number alone should show you that their assets, their cash, their inventory, etc. By the way, inventory they've greatly reduced to combat kind of how we're going to a more digital world. Anyway, so if you look at that, I mean, they're extremely undervalued from that pure sense. They went out of business. They're being liquidated for what they're worth more now. So whenever you see all these people talking about GameStop's going to zero, it's just, that's not going to happen. I mean, it's impossible because of the assets they own. They've been beaten and battered over the last few quarters and years. Like I said, when we first got started here, part of that is, it's the tail end of a console cycle. I don't think a new PlayStation or Xbox has come out since like 2013 or 14. So, you're getting close to a decade. So there's not as many games being developed. There's just a big lull in this whole space. That should change by the end of 2020. People were worried that the coronavirus could affect the launch dates of the new PlayStation and Xbox. However, both of them have alternative options. I think in Taiwan, in Korea, which is ironically getting ravaged right now, and a few other places to make sure these things get out. And there's always going to be a lack of supply for demand when new consoles come out. I mean, I don't know how any of y'all remember like the PlayStation 2 when it came out back in 2000. I remember it took me like 9 months to get one because they just were always out. So these companies sometimes have that artificial demand, but that's besides the point. Anyways, the consoles are going to help GameStop in a big way. They're going into a new cycle. It's going to be new products. One thing PlayStation is doing is they're still going to take the discs and they're going to be supposedly completely backwards compatible to PlayStation 1. So any PlayStation game ever put on CD will be playable on this new PlayStation. Part of GameStop's revenue is their used games, if you've ever turned a game in or anything. So that's big for them. That should definitely help increase and get some of those sales back since they pretty much diminished over the last few years. I know a lot of y'all will joke, you can, the running joke is you can buy a game from GameStop for $60 and then take it back the next day and they'll buy it back from you for $3. And I mean, they've created a business like that. Another thing they're doing to combat everything, to try to turn this around, is they've greatly increased their Power Player rewards, which is like the rewards you get if you're like a gamer and spend money there, and have made those pretty enticing to entice people to buy there instead of on an Amazon or a Walmart or a Best Buy or whatever. On top of that, they are aggressively testing new store concepts. They've been doing it in Tulsa, Oklahoma, of all places. What they're trying to do is close stores, even profitable stores, because they cannibalize each other. They're everywhere. And they're trying to create these centers that are like, come and play, eat, try it before you buy it, stay for hours, watch esports, have amateur esports leagues. I know I told y'all when I pitched Activision, esports is doubling as an industry in revenue every 2 to 3 years. So it's getting huge from a business. The tests and kind of the chatter from the stores is they're killing it so far. They've become profitable. People are staying for hours and coming back, even not to buy, but to hang out, drink coffee, eat pizza, watch events. And then the end game is to not only have these amateur leagues at some of these stores, but also have stores that are like home bases for professional athletes. So, this is the home store of insert, the number one Overwatch player, World of Warcraft player, or whatever games are popular now. This is like their home store, and they'll have events there and stuff. So that's another thing they're doing to try to really kind of right the ship on their retail footprint. They've also beefed up their website, and they're doing a lot of things from a digital standpoint. Some stuff they've talked about in earnings calls, some stuff is still under wraps, but they're trying to get a good balance between physical discs and then, digital downloads and things like that. So I said the test stores are doing good. Here's another big reason. They're the number one most shorted stock in the United States. There's times over the last few months where literally more than 100% of their float has been shorted. So you basically have people that are shorting GameStop, and then somehow those shares are getting lent to someone else to short it. So you have one share sold short by two different people. That just can't, it's not physically possible. There's no way it can last indefinitely. If you saw this past week, GameStop was green several of the days when the market was down 3, 4, 5%. It's hard to drive a stock down when there's no shares to sell. And when there's just no availability because it's already has such a stress on its short, it just can be really tough for it to go down further than, $2, $3, $4, whatever, because there's just not shares available to sell. Also, a lot of activist firms, Michael Burry, he's from The Big Short. He owns like 3% of GameStop. There's a few other activist investors. I can't remember the exact numbers. Don't quote me, but I think it's like 12 or 15% are owned by these activist investors. Right now, institutions are charging upwards of like 30 or 35% interest to short GameStop. So that means you could short it and it would need to go down 35% to even break even if you held that over an entire year period. That's how that works. At some point, these investors can just pull back the reins and say, I don't want you to lend out my shares anymore. And put that with this aggressive buyback going, and all of a sudden, all these short calls are just going to start boom, 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 and we're going to have this massive short squeeze. I would be shocked if this doesn't happen in the next 18 to 24 months max. Probably in tune with, when revenues kick up with a new console cycle. I foresee this incredible, just massive short squeeze where people have to cover all the way back up to 18, 19, 20, 21, $22 a share. Could even get higher than that with such a, smaller shares available. I'm not a fortune teller, but I wouldn't be surprised. If you take any positive news in the next, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 quarters, couple that with the share buybacks, the lack of availability, and this thing could just explode upwards. I think they will not only survive, they will thrive at least through the next console generation, and then eventually everything's going to shift to digital and mobile, and who knows what'll happen with GameStop then. But I think what they're doing, and the word on the street is they're going to be successful. They got a solid management team of kind of flipping this over. I think they have a much better percentage of being successful than they do going bankrupt. Now, full disclosure, this could fail miserably, and they could go bankrupt, and we lose, or who knows, based on what assets are sold out of. But I think we should ride the coattails of these major institutions, these activist investors, and just get in this thing low and ride it back up. What I'm pitching is, if we do vote yes on it, whatever size, as long as it's below $4.20 a share, I'm cool with getting in. There's a couple ways I came to that number. It's about half the book value. It has some significant multi-year technical levels if you look at it from a technical standpoint, and just a few other nicks and knacks that I'm not even getting into right now. But I think anything under 420 is value. And then I'm pitching up front, if an eventual squeeze happens, whatever, once we've realized 150% gain on that initial investment, I say cut it in half and just ride the rest, let it ride. Not saying this is going to be like next week or next month, but I do foresee this happening sometime over the next 5 to 8 quarters. That's just me. Anyways, I appreciate your time. I got to figure out how to get this from my phone to YouTube, and then I will post it. And then Katie will send out the vote, and you'll have a couple days to do so. Hopefully after finals, some people will start pitching because we have a lot of cash and we'd love to get it invested. Other than that, have a good night, and I look forward to seeing everyone this weekend.